Hi, and welcome to this latest episode of La Plata Ward 4 Update Podcast. This is David Jenkins, La Plata Town Council member from Ward 4, and your host for this podcast and video, now also available on YouTube and YouTube Music. At our December 10th, 2024 Town Council meeting, the town introduced an ordinance called Tourism Zones. It was Ordinance 24-20, and I'll provide a link to this. And this was introduced as a new ordinance for a first reading. Now, the legislation is based upon state legislation that was passed last year by the Maryland General Assembly, specifically House Bill 1281 and another bill in the state Senate, Bill 0014. And these bills, which were signed by the governor last year, enable towns and cities and counties to create tourism zones as a means of encouraging growth and expansion of tourism-related business within those areas identified as tourism zones. It's another way to look at economic development. So the Maryland Municipal League, of which we are a member of, advocated for these bills, and so that was part of their request. And in fact, staff from the town of La Plata actually initiated this process with the Maryland Municipal League. So the highlights of this ordinance that was considered by the town back in December is that the program would be, the town's tourism zone program would be run either by the mayor or his or her designee. It would establish a tourism zone in an area that's already defined as a sustainable community by the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. And the town already is considered, our downtown area is already considered and is designated as a sustainable community. And the local bill would also allow us to create additional or future tourism zones. And then it goes about trying to define the qualifications for what would be considered a tourism-related business. And then there would be a 5-year eligibility period, and they would be reviewed annually. So, however, the ordinance as it was introduced, specifically the incentives, the processes and procedures associated with the bill or with the ordinance would be developed sometime in the future, working through either a new position called Tourism Zone Administrator or the town manager. It would be developed in accordance with the ordinance by a combination of a Tourism Zone Administrator, the town manager, and our finance director, and our Department of Planning director. So that's kind of how that would go. And while this legislation or draft ordinance was developed, in my view, with the best of intentions, and a lot of work was put into it to demonstrate the town's economic development efforts to the business community, and perhaps as a way or incentive to jumpstart downtown revitalization, as was envisioned by both the Vision 2020, the Vision 2000 plan, and the formation of the La Plata Town Center Corporation in 2012. Unfortunately, and in my view, there has been limited progress in any downtown revitalization by the town as well as by the La Plata Town Center Corporation since their inception in 2012. Please note that this Town Center Corporation did publish 2 studies, one in 2012 and 2016, which laid out specific recommendation and actions, but unfortunately there has been no implementation of these plans. So while there are many factors and many things to blame, including myself, for this lack of progress, we unfortunately, as the town, never seemed to, quote, finish or follow through on downtown revitalization. The we, in my view, that is us, is a lack of commitment by the town, and that includes me as a councilman, the current council member from Ward 4, the business community, and then unfortunately, as a result, no real knowledge or engagement by our town residents. They have very little knowledge and don't understand, so therefore there's no engagement. Unfortunately, this lack of engagement by the community was evident in a recent announcement that the La Plata Business Association would or has officially disbanded as of December 31st, 2024. That's very unfortunate. And I quote, "This decision was not made lightly, but after careful consideration and reflection on the steady decline in participation at our events," that is their events, "over the last 18 months, and the lack of volunteers for the board, it has become clear that the La Plata Business Association is no longer fulfilling its intended purpose." So I just wanted to give you that direct quote as to why they closed shop. And I will also add that the town, including me, did not necessarily support that organization over the last number of years. So again, there's plenty of blame to go around, and I don't necessarily want to finger point, but there's plenty there. So I do provide some background about downtown La Plata revitalization and what has gone on or not by the La Plata Town Center Corporation in two earlier podcasts. One was called Downtown La Plata Development, and that was posted in November of 2023. The next one was entitled My Third Year as Council Member, and I posted that on May 24th, 2024. And then most recently, as part of my podcast video called La Plata 2025 Election, and that was posted in October 2024. So that provides some background about the downtown La Plata Town Center Corporation. That's a tongue twister. So, having said all this, after the bill was introduced at our December 10th meeting, three of us, including myself, did not choose to move this forward for a second reading. And so I was not in favor of moving that forward, and this is the reason why I did not favor moving this legislation forward for future town consideration. I believe there is limited administrative and staff capacity to run this program. There were no specific incentives that were provided. I don't know what are the fiscal impacts in terms of cost and revenue generation. Could it help pay for itself or not? Are there already current town functions that could possibly support tourism, or look at ways as well to diversify our tax base? I believe there is, and I'll get to that in a few moments. Are there other options for economic development? I would suggest we could go and look at developing or starting an economic development commission or function which could combine significant or other town activities. So I'm going to devote the rest of this video podcast about that. So this next slide gives you an overview of what is economic development and what does it do for a community like La Plata or Charles County. And this information is from the International Economic Development Council. So I'm not going to read this, but I will kind of paraphrase it. But it's a program or policies or an activity that seek to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for a community by creating and retaining jobs and providing a stable tax base. That's important, and I'll get back to that in a moment. So it is also a revenue strategy for the community to create additional tax dollars for new business investment. That's important, business investment. So the next slide talks about what they aim to do. Again, bring new businesses in and promote the community, help existing businesses grow, and I'll get to that in a moment. Work with partners, help entrepreneurs set up firms and other companies. And that this what I'm referring to or scrolling or my cursor's looking at is how economic development can help a community and can make a big difference in La Plata if we really want to pursue it in the right manner. This next slide then But really, economic development is really creating a placemaking. And this is creating public spaces that are more than just places, but they are places that inspire and promote social interaction, cultural interchange. They recognize that public spaces play a key or essential role in the social, cultural, and economic life of communities, and they are critical to creating a sense of place. And I'll give you an example that the town does pretty good. We have these summer concerts that start in May and go all the way through till the early fall. Why is that they're successful? Because it creates a sense of place. They're outdoor concerts, they're in a nice green space, they're downtown, people can walk to it, you can also drive and park, but you get that sense of place. That's a good example of what economic development is. It's creating a sense of place. Placemaking. It's also more than just making jobs. So what are the objectives of placemaking? Again, enhance the public realm, excuse me, maximize economic development potential, encourage new investment in the community, and establish a diverse mix of uses to create lively business and leisure environment, entice visitation and lingering. Again, that's all part of tourism as well. People stay in the area, they will utilize and patronize local businesses, give businesses an opportunity to grow and expand, and perhaps attract new investment in La Plata. This next slide, just an overall kind of a listing of what the principles are, creating a structure or space, a distinctive identity. We kind of had that a little bit. Again, create variety and interest, ensure visual and functional continuity. We kind of have it during the summer and fall months, but not necessarily throughout the rest of the year, other than the farmers market. That's another element. Provide for comfort, and that could be expanded to provide more walkability rather than just driving everywhere. Maybe we could create more walkability within the town, and again, create or emphasize high quality. So from the Urban Land Institute, they have done a lot of research on this, and creating placemaking provides what they call triple bottom line benefits: financial, social, and environmental positive aspect for all stakeholders. That is, the residents, the town government, but more importantly, or as important, the citizens, the residents. So why is it relevant to economic development? And this is kind of gets a little bit cerebral, but our economy now is really knowledge-based, and so it creates fast-growing jobs with professionals, and they want more than just routine things to do. They want to socialize, and they have a different view, which is a different way of viewing economic development. And this is important. Instead of differentiating themselves primarily by transportation access, they look at low cost, proximity to natural resources, or other competitive advantages. Many communities are trying to seek attracting multi-generational talent by becoming desirable places to live. And I'll get to this in a moment about work where you live. So this next slide, and this is a well-known researcher, supporter of Main Street, Ed McMahon. He's also an Urban Land Institute fellow. And this is his quote: "Bottom line is that creative placemaking enhances the dividend, which is people stay longer, come back more often, and spend more money in places that attract their attention." And again, I'm getting a lot of this information from a conference and sessions I attended at the Maryland Municipal League Fall Conference this past November, in November 2024, over in Cambridge, Maryland. So this next slide, so the town has policy support to do economic development. This is from our 2022 our La Plata 2022 strategic plan, and the goal or objective is to create an economic base in La Plata that offers desirable careers and supports high standards of living for residents now and in the future. And again, you can read this, but what the important elements I think are: you create a better economic tax base, create a different mix of uses in downtown La Plata, and you support and promote a business-friendly community, and you collaborate with other businesses. Again, these are all important elements that are in our strategic plan that support what I believe we should be pursuing as an economic development commission. This next slide talks about, again, our 2020 comprehensive plan also supports economic development by these goals. I'm not going to read them all, but I think they're all work together to create a more vibrant downtown. Again, you want to strengthen the downtown core and maintain small town character. This is important. Continue to make La Plata a very walkable community. Promote civic activism and community ownership. That essentially is community engagement. Focus on and again, this gets right to the point. Focus the town's and community and economic development efforts on downtown core, public investment to attract private capital. That means the town should invest in downtown to attract new businesses and grow our existing businesses. And again, the next goal, support entrepreneurialism, our gig economy, online and telecommuting, it's still out there somewhat, and build on our current strength, economic strength. And so what I believe is the need? So we have significant, and much to the dismay of some, we do have residential growth. Here's Pine Grove, which is under construction. Over a 10 to 13, 14-year build-out, there could be 3,100 dwelling units and over more than 500,000 of commercial office space. They have a large piece on the north side of Rosewick Road that has set aside for that use. Stagecoach is another development. It hasn't started yet. That's 600 dwelling units for total build-out. We have Rosewick Corner, which is continuing to grow. That's across the street from the current Lowe's on Rosewick. And you see the retail spaces there, and they're just finishing up 193 apartments. And then you have the next phases of Steeplechase, an ongoing residential community just south of, but in the town, but south of, along 301. And you can see the phases and all the units in each of those phases. It's a combination of single family as well as townhouses. So again, this is all part of the effort to create economic development, promote downtown, diversify our economy and our tax base. And again, it's all about live near where you work, a smart growth principle. So people don't have to out-commute if you find jobs close to where they live. Another reason, the significant impact is, I cut off some of this here, but Indian Head, this is an article from October of 2024, where there is a significant expansion going on in Indian Head. That's the Navy facility in the western part of Charles County. They've been around for over 100 years, but they are the expert in the country for explosives. And you can see by the article there is a commitment to invest nearly $1 billion of work out in Indian Head, which would create a substantial number of new jobs in Indian Head at the base. And so therefore, that provides economic development opportunities for La Plata, Indian Head, and Charles County, because driving from La Plata to Indian Head is about 25 minutes. So again, it's an opportunity for existing businesses, for new customers, and perhaps attract new businesses not only in the county, but to La Plata as well. So I think that's part of the need here. And so I believe the town has certain economic development and place-making elements already in place, and we should use them. For instance, we could reconfigure our Keep La Plata Beautiful Committee, our Beautification Commission, and related activities starts as our arts, Bee City and Bird City elements into a single unified entity to include downtown, to also expand as part of downtown reinvestment. And we could reform this into one function as a La Plata Economic Development Commission. And there's precedent for that. So here you see, and again, this is a report that was done in 2012 as part of the Plata Town Center Corporation. So they had specific recommendation and action plans. This Economic Development Commission could actually start this, very frankly, from day one. Again, keeping events in downtown La Plata. We could have wayfinding signs throughout the town, pointing out new businesses, open space areas, other assets in downtown, specific businesses on how to get there. We could then still keep the farmers market. In fact, we could relocate it next to the town hall rather than having it in the county building parking lot. That would create more of a central location for the farmers market. And then we could they did make a recommendation about a significant street festival. And at one time, excuse me, the Plata Business Association did that function. Every fall, they had Rock October, where they would open up the area in front of the Charles and Island Music and have rock bands and music playing. They then wanted to expand and close off LaGrange Avenue. But unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, this probably won't happen for a while, as the Plata Business Association unfortunately disbanded at the end of December 2024. So again, this economic growth could translate into new downtown development projects. And again, this is stuff that we could do as realized in a report done in 2012 by the Plata Town Center Corporation. So here are some examples that are in Maryland that have an economic development corporation or commission function. Here's the town or city of Easton, Maryland, on the Eastern Shore. They have a population of about 17,000. This is from their website. So communities a little smaller or even bigger than us are doing this as we speak. They have it in place. Here's another example from the town of Boonesboro, Maryland. Their population is about 3,800 folks. So it can be done in smaller communities. And again, this is their website and things that they do in their board and their activities. I'll provide these links in my notes. There's another example from Bel Air, Maryland, which is off in Harford County. Their population is very similar to ours, about 10,600 folks. They have an economic development commission. So again, not that one size fits all, but there's again examples that we could draw upon for best practices. And then finally, there's Smithburg, Maryland, which I didn't know. I've heard of it, never been there yet. But again, their population is 3,000. So they've taken an interest and they have an active economic development commission to help them diversify their tax base and create jobs and businesses in their little small community. And here are the actual enabling legislation. These are their local ordinances on how they establish those economic development functions. So here's one from Easton, Smithburg, Virginia, Maryland, Bel Air, and also there's one in Havertide Grace. I didn't mention that here, but they also have one as well. They have a Department of Economic Development and Tourism. So again, there are many examples that we could choose from. Again, one size doesn't fit all, but again, there are best practices that we could try and practice as demonstration projects as we move forward at what I believe we should be doing as an Economic Development Commission. And then again, I believe it's time. It's an opportunity to reinvest in downtown La Plata, and since we haven't unfortunately done a whole lot, and again, I certainly take my share of the blame for that. And here are some additional resources that we can draw upon, and I'll provide references to this. This is Secrets of Successful Small Communities. Community revitalization is hard to get right, but here how it can succeed. And then case studies in small town development, lessons learned. Again, all excellent resources. Again, we could look at best practices and how we could learn from that to implement something for La Plata. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that. I believe it's time for economic development activity and function in La Plata. I appreciate, again, you listening and watching my videos. Again, feel free to email me your comments, questions, and concerns at djenkins@townlaplata.org. And as I close this out, thanks again. I know it's been cold. Stay warm and stay safe. Thank you.